I'd like to formally wish a good morning to all in Harris Hall and welcome those joining us online. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Lane County Board of County Commissioners to order. It's Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Today's thought is a friend of my friend's grandson asked why we have stars on our flag and to what they mean. And he, being a Navy veteran, said a ready answer, but he had some depth to it too I want to share with you. He said there are 50 stars which represent each of the 50 states that make up our United States Republic. 50 different and diverse pieces making up one ideal, a country committed to embracing the many under a mantle of freedom for one foundational purpose, that all are equal in the Creator's eye, that all are necessary and needed, and that those stars remind us we're all fingers on the same hand. I thought that was a good thought today. Well, good morning to you, Mr. Mokryski. How are you today, sir?
Good morning. Well,
good deal. Do we have any adjustments to our agenda?
No.
Any emergency business?
No.
Super. And let's go right on to public comments. We do only have a handful of them, so your full 3 minutes is yours to bear. If you'll just come to that public podium right there, state your name for the record, and we will begin. We'll begin by Emily Heilburn, followed by Bill Compton, please.
Good morning. My name is Emily Heilbrunn. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm a resident of Eugene and a member of Trans Alliance of Lane County and United for Immigrant Justice. I want to thank you all for deciding to have an open process for the hiring of the sheriff. Very important to all of us and everyone to have a transparent process for that. I'm here to ask that in the interviews you ask the finalists the following 3 questions. Will you uphold the Oregon Sanctuary Promise Act to protect immigrants in our county? Will you update or as needed create policies that uphold the rights of transgender and immigrant people? And will you protect public officials who are following state law and county policy from arrest and imprisonment? The answers to these questions will let us know how the person who will fill this important position in our county stands on these important issues and how they will stand up to the federal government when its actions conflict with Oregon law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill Compton, followed by Guy Higashi, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's great to be here once again. Appreciate your leadership. Bill Compton with Cornerstone Leadership Consulting. As I shared last week, I want to share once again, my father was a very wise man, and some of the things he shared with me have been fantastic. One of them is this: the man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes the crooked path will be found out. How that has served me well, but it has also served our acting sheriff, Carl Wilkerson. You know, after making several phone calls after our meeting last week and talking with several folks in the business community as well as the LEO community, I posed this question to myself. Why, when the county's budget is in crisis and things are being cut, would the commissioners and administrative staff incur such cost and time, energy, financial resources, and potentially demoralization of the patrol and jail deputies and the administrative staff with an upheaval with a new sheriff, when we have a well-respected person serving as acting sheriff right now? Carl Wilkerson has served Lane County for 20-plus years, and he began in 1996. He is faithful, and he has done an honorable service with great experience as a deputy, then a sergeant, lieutenant, and finally chief deputy, and now is standing in as the acting sheriff. My research has uncovered some very interesting things. I found through my research that not a single person from the past years that he's served, nor in the present, can they bring a charge against Carl Wilkerson for any misconduct because of a derelict of duty, but rather that he has found to be honorable with great distinction, not only by his members in LCSO, but many other organizations. I've only heard praise and appreciation for this man of great leadership. Carl is respected by many community leaders that I've worked with in business, district attorney's office, 3 former sheriffs, and law enforcement agencies across the state of Oregon. I reached out to the lieutenant down in Roseburg for OSP, and he said he's a wonderful man. In fact, I received this from retired Lane County Sheriff Byron Trapp. Acting Sheriff Wilkerson is an ethical law enforcement professional who takes his oath seriously, and as sheriff will ensure equal and just enforcement of Oregon and Lane County laws in accordance with his oath. He has my full support and confidence as the next Lane County Sheriff. It's really important that Carl has proved himself to have upheld his oath to office to protect the laws of Oregon and the laws of the Constitution and to fulfill them, applying them and enforcing them equally for all peoples regardless of race, gender, creed, personal preferences.
Thank you, Bill. Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Guy Higashi, followed by Baruch Gaddario.
Good morning, Commission, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of the various roles that I played on recommendation of Carl Wilkerson as the sheriff. I come as a chaplain, I come as an educator, and I come as a pastor. I've had known Carl for about 2 years now, And he's spoken in our undergrad and graduate classes. And the topic that he was addressing was team leadership and communication. One of the things that was so important in law enforcement was communication and teamwork between members. One of the great things that Carl has done and Cliff and the rest of the people at LCSO was partner with a lot of different areas of offices, EPD, SPD, and others as well, in making sure that this community is safe. I know with the budget constraints, you want to make sure that everyone is safe and protected according to the law. And I think Carl always represented LCSO well in the public setting, communicated well. One of the attributes that I thought Carl did so well, not only running the office in the sheriff's absence, was he has such a calm demeanor. And I think when he talks with anybody, the situation, whether it be a victim or the offender or the people on their team, he always spoke with kindness and was very, very calm. And so my ask would be that when we consider someone, you want someone who has done the role before, who is competent in the skills, and is able to build the type of leadership that is necessary to make sure that there's a good cooperation, not only between the sheriff's office, but between all the other protective agencies, such as SWAT, as they work to protect all people, regardless of where they're coming from. I think Carl will do a great job, and I think faced with the challenges presented with him, he has the ability and the leadership, well prepared, communicates clearly, is calm, and is a man of character, virtue, and ethics. When David was king, and his son Solomon was going to take over, and people had a question about if he could transition well. And Solomon was considered the wisest man because he had two people that came to him, two women, and they said, both of them said that this is their child. And so what Solomon basically said was, get a sword and cut them both in half. And the one who said that that was their child says, oh, great, at least each of us have one half. But the true mother of that child said, spare the child. And then Solomon said, give it to the other woman because she certainly knows what is best. And so that is wisdom, and I think that's what Carl brings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is up. Thank you, Mr. Hagashi. Baruch Guerrero, followed by Anna Lardner, please.
Aloha, Baruch Cordero. I'm a student at New Hope Christian College, and I had the privilege and opportunity of meeting Carl Wilkerson and his team of men. What was honorable about this man was that his leadership was set on the foundations of unity, justice, and liberty and equality. And it was evident that he, as the authority, made it known that these things, that he stood on these things. I also had the privilege of meeting his team, and they also stood for equality, justice, mercy, and fairness for everyone. And I support all of that. This foundation, these values that will stand the test of time. Amen.
Thank you. Anna Lardner, followed by Jacob Griffin, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Anna Lardner. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the organizers with Trans Alliance of Lane County. I'm here today to emphasize the importance of asking these public questions in this public interview process that's coming up for the sheriff candidate. First off, I want to thank you for opening up the process and ensuring transparency in this process during a time where trust in local government, federal government, and law enforcement is historically at a low point. It is really important to have that transparency, and this board has now showed its commitment to public transparency by opening up that recruitment and committing to having those interviews in the next few weeks. The interviews themselves, though, need to include certain questions that will speak to the concerns of residents of Lane County and make sure that the next sheriff is following the law and upholding the oaths of office that he has taken both when he got sworn in as a deputy and then as he will take again when he gets sworn in as sheriff. In this case, those are 4 questions. We've talked about 3 of them, and there's a 4th one I want to add. The first one is that will the sheriff uphold the Oregon Sanctuary Promise Act? This is state law. It's an important state law. The Oregon Sanctuary Promise Act of 1987 was the first in the nation to assure that our state resources will not be used for federal immigration enforcement. Then it received some later adjustments to close some loopholes. We want to make sure that the sheriff's office in Lane County is following that state law and protecting all residents of the county. The second one is to commit to creating and updating policies that affect transgender and immigrant rights in the county. The sheriff's office, as the operator of the jail and who runs patrol, who runs a lot of alternative diversion programs, interfaces with these populations. And it's very important that the policies that the sheriff's office is enacting protects those people when they're in those different spaces. We also need to make sure that the sheriff is honoring the commitment that this board voted 3-2 in order to update and create those policies. The third one, which is one that we did not mention before, is to ensure that the sheriff's office is updating and reviewing its use of force policies, particularly around deadly force and body cameras. We need to make sure that the sheriff's office, when deputies do have their body cameras, have those body cameras on at the beginning of contacts. As a former law enforcement officer, when I was at parole and probation, we know that situations can evolve very quickly, and we need body cameras on to make sure the entirety of those interactions are captured. Finally, we need to ask the sheriff's candidate if they will protect Lane County public officials, yourselves included, from any federal overreach when Lane County officials are going to be following state law and county policy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Jacob Griffin, followed by David Eigel, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Griffin. My pronouns are he, him. I don't want to repeat what either Anna or Emily or anyone before me has said. I do want to thank you. I think that you have all been thoughtful and gracious in hearing us and responding to us, and I am really pleased that my elected officials represent us that way. And that's one of the things I want to talk about here. I've heard from some of the sheriff's employees and Mr. Compton that that the current undersheriff is the right person for the position. And, you know, in the United States, we have that principle of the consent of the governed. And the sheriff's position is an elected position, which means that it needs the consent of the governed. And because of the way sheriffs tend to resign in the middle of their term and allow their replacement to come in, we often don't get to see alternatives. We don't get to be consenting. We are given. I heard a lot of discussion about how great I'm sorry, I don't know any of the people involved and have no opinion on them except that we should have the best sheriff we can possibly have. And the only way to do that is to interview multiple people. To me, a person who has been in the same organization for 30 years with the same traditions, the same values, all of those things is not, to me, a good thing. It is a bad thing. And if every sheriff in Oregon thinks the current undersheriff is the right person, says nothing to me in terms of what do the people of Lane County want? What do the governed consent to? And I suspect most of the sheriffs and other law enforcement people who feel that this is the right candidate for us are probably mostly white male. And I think we might need to hear from a more diverse population, say some of those who are more likely to be arrested or in some way have to engage with the law. And that seems to me to be the more appropriate thing than to take a popularity survey among the people who are going to report to the sheriff. And in fact, I have to say, if I were seeking a job and people from the library came out to support me, I would feel really uncomfortable about the ethics of that you are coming out to speak in favor of your future boss. That would concern me a little. But what I think is most important is that you represent the people who cannot be there and represent themselves, and you speak for the non-law enforcement people and for what they need from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. David Eigel, followed by one person online, please.
David Eigel. I heard from a friend recently who I hadn't heard from and had expected to hear from. He was at the big get-together, as it were, several weeks ago, addressing LGBTQ issues, and he's gay, and he was quite upset that I had gotten up and spoken about the areas that I'm interested in. And the reason why he was upset is that someone had informed him and others that this had been a special meeting called just to address that issue, and he thought it was awfully callous of myself to step forward and address these petty issues when the serious issues were supposed to be addressed. And I don't know who spread this word about, but I think we should look into that and find out who was lying to the public. Regarding the last few years at the Lane County History Museum, I can go on, but I'll hit some high points here. When Bob Hart was the director, I'd made an appointment to talk to him about my concern about the false history that was being disseminated about Professor Dunn. And he made the appointment and over the phone, and then I got an email from him saying he would not keep the appointment because he'd talked to other people about me and said he had relationships with the museum on campus, et cetera. So in other words, it's his little personal fiefdom, and he didn't need to hear from anybody else. At the subsequent 2022 annual meeting, which was still electronic only, he removed me from the meeting by electronically kicking me out because right within the normal process, I said I had a concern about this I wanted to raise. And subsequently, it's still on the YouTube, the meeting was altered. Still in this fashion, I was removed from the meeting. I was unlawfully denied access, as the state law requires prior to elections, to the membership list so that I could contact the members of the Lane County Historical Society about what's going on. And this year, although I was a member, I didn't receive my invitation to the annual meeting. I requested that the commissioners insist that the people over there should inform during the county fair when most people come about all the misinformation which I've documented has been disseminated to the public about our history. If not, I'm going to have to put up people outside handing stuff out, and I'm going to not have to be restrained if I'm doing it personally. The Dunn, just to emphasize, Professor Dunn, the whole nonsense was based on the fact that the crooked Fraternal Order salesman who employed rumors in the spring of 22 set out a rumor that Dunn was the head of the Klan. That was his relationship. It's a lie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eigel. And Jessica, we have one person online, I believe.
That is correct. And for those joining us virtually, if you wish to give public comment, please raise your virtual hand now. And we have one hand raised. Andrew Frost. Would you like to be on camera for your public comment? Andrew, I see that you're unmuted. Are you able to speak? If you are speaking, we do not hear you. Andrew, I would suggest that you log off and try to log on again. We can wait just a minute while you do that if you would like to do so.
Okay, while he's doing that, I'd like to note for the public, we are appearing like we're down one commissioner, but Commissioner Farr is joining us remotely via audio, so I know he can hear us. So he'll be rejoining us in person later this morning.
That is affirmative, Chair.
There you go. Thank you very much for checking in, Commissioner Farr. I appreciate that.
Andrew, I do not see that you logged off. I'm going to attempt to promote you to a panelist to see if that resolves our issues. Andrew, you are now in our panelist forum. Are you able to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Would you like to be on
sound like a
camera?
conflict. You can turn it on if you want.
That would be you. You would turn it on if you would like. Otherwise, you can begin your testimony.
I'll just speak.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Commissioners. My name's Andrew Frost. I've been in a few times. A couple of things. One is there's a lot of orange signs over all the parking meters, making it really hard to park in town and then come in and make comment. But I've been coming in talking about the case of my house, the illegal reconstruction that went on next door, and all the problems that caused. I filed I went to an arbitration. This is something I think you guys need to look at. I went to an arbitration, and it was unrecorded. Now, I happen to know this has been a problem now for years. Unrecorded court systems. I'm not even sure how that's constitutional, but it seems like something really should be done. This was a arbitration done over Zoom, and yet it wasn't recorded. If I'd known, I would try to record it myself. But I brought in in terms of your finances there at the county, I made a report, ORE 21100011. It's to the finance department. It was because in the lack of inspections of the house next door and the lack of applying the permit process to the builders, they've allowed people that are getting away with building substandard. They're robbing honest traders of trade. They're getting the jobs they underbid by, they bid 10,000 extra on the building when they bought it, but they saved that in not having to do any of the wiring or any of the stuff to make it up to code. So I complained because I see that as a robbing the county. I see it as as theft from the county of their finances. So I made that report. Now, I believe that report went through to the finance department. Now, I'm curious what happened to it, because in depositions, the person that was harassing me named someone at your finance department as having helped them and given them advice. Now, that's very unethical. So I'm not going to name anything here, but I do think it's beholden on you to understand that I've been angry about a situation where I tried to protect the county and people from a dangerous building. Turns out I was right about that, and that the other person was lying and perjuring themselves. Good luck with the sheriff's nomination. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for listening to me. You all have a good day. Cheers. Now, how do I turn it off?
Thank you, Chair. That concludes those joining us virtually.
All right, good deal. Thank you for the help, Jessica, and thank you for all those who came forward to give public testimony. We are listening intently. We're taking copious notes as you are watching us do, and we take to heart everything that you say to help us decide what's best for the county. So again, thank you. Our next item on our agenda this morning is our consent calendar. All items listed here are routine by the Board of County Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If the discussion is desired, that item would have been removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately. Details on each item can be found in the blue links attached to the item descriptions on our website, and I'm looking for a motion for our consent calendar.
Chair, I move to approve the consent calendar for May 20th, 2025.
Do I have a second? Thank you, my two dependable commissioners. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar and a second. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Our vote's aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Thank you. Our next item is our Public Works item number 5, Order 25052006, in the matter of approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Lane County Historical Society and authorizing the county administrator to execute the amendment. I'm seeing Dan Hurley is on the schedule, but Rachel Surslev is also in the audience. Is that something we're going to punt to or sidestep somewhere else? Mr. Mokryski.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably not Rachel's item. I can wing it for you here and say this is a request for a lease extension, an amendment, I should say, to the agreement with the Lane County Historical Society. And this is actually with the Friends of the Lane County Historical Museum. This is to provide essentially a 2-year notification to the History Museum if the county were to terminate.
All right, great. Any questions for Mr. Mokrowski from our colleagues? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion then on this order.
Yes, Chair, I move to approve Order 2505-2006 in the matter of approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Lane County Historical Society and authorizing the county administrator to execute the amendment.
Great. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Vice Chair and a second by Commissioner Buck to approve Amendment 2 as per Board Order 2505-2006 in the lease agreement with the Lane County Historical Society. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Our vote's aye.
Aye. Vote passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Mokrowski, for pitch hitting on that item. Appreciate it very much. Our next item up for our discussion and purview is item 6, our county administration item, which is the matter of establishing a limited duration task force to study and establish draft parameters for the land banking program. Great thing to talk about. Mr. Eric Mongan, our housing production manager, is here to give us the lowdown on this item. Welcome, Eric. How are you this morning?
Doing well. Thank you, Commissioner. Chair. Good morning. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. For the record, my name is Eric Mongan. I'm the Housing Production Manager for the county. Come before you this morning seeking your approval and adoption of a board order directing the county administrator to form a limited duration task force to study land banking programs and to establish draft processes, goals, benchmarks, and evaluation cycles for a countywide land banking program, which will be compiled in a report and presented to the board at a future meeting. Within the 25-26 budget message, the proposed land banking program is described and how it will be designed are included, specifically that we will be seeking the expertise of folks within the community. With optimism, I am here today to take the first step of the program design by asking that this task force be created. To ensure a successful program, we will request that a limited duration task force be created with each of the 5 commissioners selecting 1 member, staff selecting 2 members for a total of 7 members. The appointed individual should be at least 18 years of age, have knowledge of housing development, land acquisition, ethics, and/or program evaluation. Once identified, staff will return for official appointment and to establish the principles of the task force. Staff estimates that there will be 6 to 7 meetings over a couple of months where we will come back and present the draft program for the board's consideration and hopeful approval. Your options for action on the proposed order are to adopt as written, make adjustments to the proposal, or decline to create a task force. Staff recommends the board adopt the order as written, including the attached memo labeled Attachment A. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Great, Eric. Thank you very much. Mr. Adams, do you have anything to add there?
I do not, Chair.
All right. Well, colleagues, any questions for staff? Yes, Vice Chair.
It's not a question, it's just more of a statement. I was lucky enough to be, went down to visit Mr. Adams in his office, and the 2 brain trusts were down there, him and Mr. Mongan, discussing this task force as I walked in. And I'm full support. I'm very excited about this, Eric, and I love your passion for it. And that passion is contagious. And I hope this thing moves forward, and we have a great task force that you can work with. It's exciting stuff.
Yes, Mr. Trigger.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation and bringing this forward. It's exciting to see pieces of our Affordable Housing Action Plan take shape and come to fruition. Anybody at the table, it may not be you, what will be the process for recruiting? Are you looking to us to identify folks? Is there going to be an open recruitment using our new universal application form? What's that process going to look like?
Chair, Commissioner. It would be that the commissioners each identify an individual with the qualities that they desire, I suppose, hopefully with a lean towards housing production, and that those folks would be, just ensure that they have the time. Staff would check with them to make sure they can make the commitment, and then they would come back for appointment.
Great, thank you. So there's nothing beyond what's in the packet that we need that we could send out to somebody to ask if they're interested, just what you just shared today? Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you. Similar question along those lines. Usually when we've had committees like this, whether we just choose whomever we want or we put it out for open application, I have always done an open application, even when I have the choice to just pick somebody that I want, and just out of transparency. And then there might be more people interested in my district than I may even be aware of. So I would like that opportunity to do that again. And I don't know which application, if it's the universal application that we use now or whatnot, but something should be on it, I would think, just to emphasize that we're looking for somebody with housing interest, basically. Maybe that's on the RFP that goes out. I would highly suggest that for all of us, just because that makes it an open opportunity for everybody within each of our districts to apply to us, and then we choose. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up that occurs to me, for example, with the Budget Committee, we can just go out and find somebody, or we can do an open application or a combination. There also is not a requirement that they live within our district. So again, just I think the more I'm thinking about this is, just a little bit more just bare bones structure to it, so there is transparency and so that we're all using some of the same, or at least have the opportunity to use the same criteria and process so the public knows. And those applications become public should anybody apply. And even when we select like a Budget Committee member, some of us have them fill out the application just so it's part of the public record. So when we go to make the appointments, there's some materials to go with it about who these folks are that as a public body we are appointing to this task force.
Great, and thank you, Eric, for heading this up. Your quote about, with optimism, I'm here to give the plan. I share your same optimism. I think this is a great idea. It's certainly out of the box in some ways, but I think it's going to be something that's going to push the envelope a little bit and get us a move on the needle. So I appreciate you doing this very much. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Commissioner Farr has his hand raised.
Yes, go ahead. Commissioner Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. And just a general question regarding the Board of Commissioners appointing five of the members of the committee. That is a common practice that the board appoints members. And I wonder, can somebody talk about why would the board have any input at all?
Chair, Commissioner Farr, I think there is some discretion, but we certainly looked at Wayne Code and Wayne Manual to help devise this, and there is a task force prescribed. We certainly, I know in terms of thinking through this process and after the administrator put this concept forward, we wanted to craft a program design that met muster with the process that was transparently conducted and that we could be proud of as this program moved forward. We thought it best, reflecting on past practice, that the board, and the opportunity, I think, and the expertise on this board with particular facets of housing production and extensive networks into the community would be best positioned to help us select people. So as we considered the options, this struck us not only as past practice, but a good practice for developing.
Thank you, Steve. I apologize for cutting off. I've got to step into a place where I need to turn my mic off in a few moments here. But you've answered why we did it according to Lane Manual, et cetera. But no small part of why the board as a part of the appointment process, whether it be the Budget Committee or any other committee that the board appoints one member of, whether it be a redistricting committee, for instance. Last time we redistricted, the same thing happened. It's an opportunity for the board to appoint members who they know to be knowledgeable about the process that we're going to be going through. Now, an open process to choose that member is absolutely essential. However, the reason that 5 board members choose 5 members is so that each board member can have a certain amount of input on the workings of the committee. We did that with the Public Safety Task Force. We do it with the Budget Committee. That is a standard operating procedure with the board. And it's been that way probably since Lane County was initially chartered as a county. So I'm glad we're using that process, Mr. Adams, and thank you for the explanation of why on paper we're doing it, but certainly why in process we're doing it is no small way for the board to have its input very specifically regarding who is on the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I need to, Chair, I need to step away. I apologize. I'll be back online probably in about 15 or 20 minutes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, Commissioner Farr. Anyone else? Yes, Eric, please.
Chair, thank you. I just wanted to, at least my thought process on this, and I wanted to put this out there, is that to be the most valuable, to get the best of the best, which is what I think we need, it shouldn't necessarily be limited to just the county boundary either. So if you know someone in Bend or something like that that wants to participate, I think that could be something that should be considered, because the housing production world is a shallow pool, if you will, and there's not a lot to choose from. So if there's somebody doing some great thing out there somewhere that you have a contact with, that may be one of the better additions to the task force. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
And just to add and clarify, some going around, for the public. The task force will be to create or to bring a proposal forward of what a land banking program might look like. They're not actually making decisions. This is not about real estate purchases, right? So just to get that out there really clear, this is to design a program, to give input on a program design that will then come back before us.
Chair, Commissioner, that's absolutely correct. Drafting a program is all they're working on.
Thank you.
Good. Shaping process underway. There's no further discussion. I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Chair, I have a motion. I move to approve Order 2505-2007 in the matter of establishing a limited duration task force to study and establish draft parameters for a land banking program.
I'll second.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We have a motion by the Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Buck, to direct the County Administrator to establish and appoint members of a limited duration task force study and establish draft parameters for a proposed land banking program, and to create a report recommendations for staff to present to the Board of County Commissioners per Board Order 25052007. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4 with 1 absent. Commissioner Farr, thank you very much for the presentation. Look forward to the optimism that we share with you. Thank you very much, Eric.
Maybe. Commissioner Farr may be excused.
He's excused. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, absent. Yeah, excused absence. Thank you. We do have need for an exec session. We're going to recess, but let me read us into executive session. The Board of County Commissioners will now meet in one executive session. The session is to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and to consult with the council concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 192.6602H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive sessions for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Members of the news media are not allowed to tape, video record, or otherwise record an executive session, and verbatim notes are prohibited, and no decision may be made in executive decision. We will meet in executive session at 9:50, and then we'll return from recess to Harris Hall for our 11 o'clock time certain item. We are recessed. like to welcome us back from recess to the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Today is still Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Our next item on our agenda is item 6B, County Administration item, which is a public hearing for the Sierra Pacific Industries Strategic Investment Program. I want to say that very slow, Strategic Investment Program, because it'll be referred to many times as we talk about this as a SIP. So it's the Strategic Investment Program application and the process terms of the SIP agreement between Lane County and the Sierra Pacific Industries, a Delaware corporation, pursuant to ORS 285C.600-285C-620 and ORS 307123. This is the time set for a public hearing on the Sierra Pacific Industries Strategic Investment Program application and proposed business terms of the Strategic Investment Program agreement with Lane County. We will start with a brief presentation from the staff regarding Sierra Pacific's SIP application, the proposed terms of a SIP agreement with Lane County, and the need for this public hearing. The staff presentation will be followed by testimony from the applicant, Sierra Pacific Industries, and after Sierra Pacific's testimony, public comments will be opened, and the comments are limited to 3 minutes, and residents are encouraged to provide written public comment as well. Those interested in testifying, please sign up at the table back here by the entry. If you haven't done so already, there's still time to do so before that item will come before us. Following the public testimony, we will have time for any brief clarifying comments from staff, followed by a period of questions or comments from the commissioners. And all of the notes will be received today as comments. So I'd like to turn this over to our Community and Economic Development Manager Jason Harris, who has garnered and persevered this project from start to finish. Welcome back, Jason. Please introduce your panel.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, members of the public. Jason Harris, Lane County's Community Economic Development Manager, providing the staff presentation this morning. Thank you for the Chair for reading in the item. We're here to present and discuss Sierra Pacific Industries Strategic Investment Program. As highlighted, we're referencing that Strategic Investment Program as SIP, just for ease of reference, the application and proposed terms with Lane County. The SIP is a state law enacted by the legislature in 1993, and it provides a special assessment tax exemption for traded sector companies making large capital investments anywhere in Oregon. And this is unique to this program as opposed to enterprise zones that provide a similar tax abatement, but they're based on geographic boundaries. In this case, Sierra Pacific Industries site that we're discussing, the Eugene Sawmill, is not located within an enterprise zone, and thus they were interested in pursuing a SIP. SIP, as I referenced, are for large capital investments. This being a urban SIP, the site is located within the urban growth boundary of Eugene, but not within the city limits. As such, Lane County is the only governing entity. The investment minimum requirement for a SIP in an urban zone is $150 million, which you'll hear further in the presentation. Sierra Pacific is proposing to make a $253 million investment. SIP also does cover rural areas, and those project investments are for $40 million minimums. And the unique aspect of the SIP program is the first $100 million, it's really to incentivize large capital investments, are taxed. In this case, the first $100 million being invested is taxed throughout the SIP term. Investment above that threshold is abated. And that $100 million that is taxed, it has an inflationary 3% that's applied to it throughout, and you'll see those totals forward. And then lastly, there's no statutory employment requirement. Again, this is really to incentivize capital investment, but statute does require a first source hiring agreement with the state, which Sierra Pacific has conducted. Second slide. When I referenced that the investment above $100 million, again, that minimum threshold amount is tax exempt, the company is required to pay a community service fee representing 25% of that tax savings. That community service fee is distributed to the county and then out to the 75% of non-educational service districts with taxing authority. In the case of where the project site is located, Those would include Lane Fire Authority, Lane County, Junction City Water Control District, and the Upper Willamette Soil and Water. If this project proceeds, there will ultimately be a requirement for the county to enter into a disbursement agreement of the community service fee with these entities, and that would be a following action later this summer. Just a highlight overview of Sierra Pacific Industries. They will speak to their company shortly, but largely they're family-owned, at least 3 generations working within the company today. They acquired the Seneca family of companies in October 2021, and they're full range, vertical integrated forest land management, lumber manufacturing, renewable power generation on site. They conduct window manufacturing and millwork, again, traded sector in a competitive landscape. They have sawmills operations in forest lands, Oregon, California, and Washington, and window manufacturings in multiple states as well. In Eugene specific, in the site specific, there's 347 full-time employees. They have 3 sawmills in operation. Again, that cogeneration renewable power facility is referenced. And then recently the company made an $8 million investment on site for fabrication and truck facility operations. They have initiated discussions with the county in early 2024 regarding the SIP. We've been in discussions and analyzing the investments since that period of time. As referenced earlier, there's a $253 million investment of new facilities, equipment, and machinery and site improvements proposed. Overall modernization and replacements of facilities, improving safety and increasing operational flexibility and efficiency. And the project sequencing is planning to occur from a development standpoint over the next 4 years, and the ability to retain all staff members through that period of time. Just the highlights, wood manufacturing is largest manufacturing industry in Lane County. As you can see the numbers here on the chart, we have over 6,000 employees total in the industry. In the case of Sierra Pacific, including their Notai sawmill in Lane County, that brings them up to almost 460 employees. They have an average annual salary at $73,000 above the industry average overall, as well as their entry wages start higher than average industry and offer full range of benefits to their employees. The site we're discussing is on Highway 99, adjacent to the Eugene Airport, 90201 North, Highway 99. I think I underestimated the size. They're closer to 150 acres of total operation, and as previously referenced, in the urban growth boundary, but not within Eugene city limits. As such, only the county is engaged in this discussion. And here's top line tax estimates on the project. You'll see the full range of tax analysis that our assessment and taxation staff conducted. The first line there is just showing this is over the 15-year SIP term. Existing taxes continue to be collected on land and improvements. Those are not abated. And over the 15 years, that's estimated to generate $24.5 million in overall property taxes. The county of our 12% would receive approximately $2.9 million of that. And then the second line item there is this, the SIP tax. So that first $100 million of investment is taxed with that 3% escalation annually over the 15 years is estimated to generate just under $20 million. Again, that 12% for county revenue would approximate $2.4 million. They would have a tax savings of 7.9, but again, they pay 25% of that savings to the community service fee, which would equate to $2 million over that 15-year period, and that's again distributed to the county and those 3 other taxing authorities as referenced prior, generating a total tax liability payment of $46.4 million. Off to the right, you can see that if the company made the full investment without the SIP exemption, they would be at about $52.3 million in tax payment. And this is, an overall 15-year tax form that our tax analysis that our assessment and taxation staff produced. I pulled out the totals at the end, and you could just cross-compare. Obviously, I rounded up on the prior slide, but this is the full analysis that was conducted. And as referenced, everything highlighted is really statutory required, highlighted under legislation and administrative rules. It is customary that communities receive a community benefit payment in support of the projects. And in the case, Sierra Pacific's proposed a community benefit payment towards public safety, rural patrols in particular. Either a one-time payment of $525,000 at project occupancy or $35,000 annually over the 15-year SIP term. Staff proposes, if the board proceeds, to encourage the $525,000 one-time payment. Time value of money, ease of administration would be the rationale for that. Additionally, the companies offered a one-time $10,000 and administrative fee to cover staff expenses to process the application. And the companies, in spirit, agreed to performance guarantees of employment and operations during the SIP term, as well as $150 million investment minimum in completion of that investment by 2028 at minimum.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, please, Commissioner Furr.
Regarding that last slide, Mr. Harris, the community benefit payments, the admin fee, et cetera, that is aside from the SIP exemption, that is, that comes out of, straight out of the company, is that right?
Chair, Commissioner, correct. These community benefit payments are additional payments outside of statute that the company has voluntarily offered, and these are the proposed business terms that are under consideration as a part of the application.
So and I'm sorry to drill down on this, but the SIP exemption of $7.9 million, the company pays this beyond that exemption, so it's not, that is to say the community benefits is in addition to whatever taxes they pay. That's what I'm trying to say, isn't it?
Chair, Commissioner, correct. These payments highlighted on the summary slide that pulled off of that 15-year tax analysis are under statute requirements, and there are formulas established under statute. Companies obligated to pay under the SIP program. Additionally, these community benefit payments summarized here on this slide as highlighted are voluntary and not obligated under SIP statute, but would be considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And then just rounding this out, just kind of a process slide showing out where we are at. We are holding a public hearing. This is a requirement under the SIP statute. If the board's supportive of proceeding, ultimately there would be a follow-up determination of the board of approval of a SIP agreement. Both of the documents of this public hearing as well as a SIP agreement is forwarded on to the Oregon Business Development Commission, who formally enacts the project from a state authority standpoint. And thereafter, we have 90 days, the county, to enter into community service fee distribution agreements that I highlighted earlier. And we've initiated conversations with those taxing authorities. In broad terms, the board's consideration today are providing feedback of the proposed terms of the SIP agreement and the SIP application overall. Board could ask for additional public hearing if testimony warrants. The board could also reject proposed terms and direct staff for alternative options. So this concludes the staff presentation, and I'll transition here shortly to provide opportunity for the business to provide their presentation. And with that, just give me a moment to switch over. Okay. And with that, let me introduce Courtney Grissel, Community Relations Manager, and Gary Young, the Chief Financial Officer for Sierra Pacific.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be here. We want to say thank you to you all for making time and also engaging with us ongoing. We've been learning about this program. I think at the same time, kind of we all have together. It's not one that we've had a lot of experience with. And we also have to say thank you to the staff because that learning experience has meant a lot of conversations back and forth, trying to understand nuances of how it works and how it works in relationship to the timing of an investment and construction seasons. So Sierra Pacific Industries, as Jason noted, 3 generations working in the company today, but we're actually a 4th generation family-owned company. While we were founded in Northern California, we were actually chatting about it today, about a third of our ownership calls Oregon home. We live and work where we work. It's because our crews are here, our resources are here, our operations, and our company believes strongly in being boots on the ground and in the mills and in the forests as leadership with crews as often as possible. So we are a company that operates pretty flat. Access to leadership is easy and efficient for our crew members, and that helps us do a number of things very well. It helps us address kind of core areas of investment, of community need, of modernization faster and more nimbly because we are on the ground doing the work with the teams our owners are. I'll note in Lane County, we're talking about the Eugene site today, but our operations span both Eugene and Notai, as Jason mentioned. These facilities are independent of each other. They are making different products. Both these facilities will remain important assets for us moving forward. The site we're going to talk about today in Eugene is primarily a dry facility, meaning we dry most of the lumber that is made at this facility. So just wanted to flag that we love our Notai site as well, even though we're going to talk mostly about Eugene today. Go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about our priorities. All of these priorities underpin kind of our ultimate overarching mission, which is to make sustainable forest products that are used by everyday community members every day. And we do that with resources that are also local. So, Lane County, Oregon, trees turned into Oregon lumber, building Oregon homes, but also building homes outside of the state, which is what makes us part of that traded sector economy. Our priorities are really important to being able to do that work. Wildfire risk is really one of our top mitigation priorities. It's something that we're all experiencing in the rural communities. It's pressuring everywhere. And it is impacting how we think about forest management and how we also partner with other agencies that we need to have think about forest management. And it's also partnering how we invest some of our capital in things like fuel breaks, something that Lane County will see us investing in here shortly on some neighboring property. Retention and internal job growth, as well as leaning into our partners in the community, is very important. So we do partner closely with organizations like Lane Workforce Partnership, with Connected Lane County, with WorkSource, both to help crew members find future employment with us, but also to help our current crew members grow, whether it's specialized training we can offer or working with others like the Driving Prosperity Grant to see kind of how all boats can rise in some partnerships. The market resilience is something we'll talk about with this project because this project really is all about ensuring our site is resilient for the generations forward, the next 20, 30, 40 years, making sure the site is modern and can also be flexible to accommodate what we see in future supply, that we can process that in a way that helps us pencil the product as effectively as possible. And then the last 2 bullets I'll expand on a little bit more in the next slide, but really living within the community and supporting the community, understanding how the community lives, works, plays is very important to us because our crew members are part of that community. So we do engage in important partnerships. We fund one of the current rural patrol at Lane County. We also have a funding partnership with Douglas County similarly. Just knowing rural patrol is one of the harder gaps to fill from a service standpoint. We also see ourselves in places where we hear, you know, the deputy is out there and there's some gaps in their ability as a first responder to help somebody in a health crisis. We were some of the groups that came forward and funded AEDs to go into those cars. So we're doing some of that basic engagement around safety and health. We're also engaging with the school districts and sometimes even just the arts. If it's something that really helps quality of life and balance, we are trying our best to be in that space in a meaningful way. And then industry advancement for us will always be key. The health of this industry broadly, even if we're not making product, that exact product is very important to us because it takes a lot of components to build a home. We can't make all of them, but we need our partners in that work to be equally strong. So to that point, I'll flag this one. This is an image of the signage at Oregon State University on the AA Red Emerson Advanced Wood Products Laboratory. Tallwood Design Institute operates in that. We were an early and substantial funder to that facility. We don't make those panels, but we understand that the advancement of those types of materials and of community members having choice is really important. And the testing and work in this field is very important. Just sharing some of our philanthropic contributions over time. We've just entered Oregon, really. 2021 was when we acquired Seneca, and 2022 is when we fully integrated over under Sierra Pacific. But our contributions to date in Oregon have been about $6.5 million. And we don't really have a target or a limit. It has more to do with what makes sense and what is the need and where does the conversation go. So we're happy to talk a little bit more about some of those pieces, but I want to be a little bit mindful of time. And let's go to the next slide.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah.
Staying competitive, I mean, that's really part of the reason why we're here today. So the lumber industry operates in a commodity market. We produce like products with our competition, and we're price takers, not price makers. And you really have to be a low-cost provider to be able to stay competitive in this market. Overall, Oregon Mills especially, I mean, we face very high log cost here, and we're increasingly competing with, you know, low-cost mills, especially in the U.S. South. Basically, the U.S. South has been the only area in North America where there's been increasing sawmill production. On the contrary, here in the Pacific Northwest, it's largely been a contraction, including here in Oregon. So with this type of project, our margins are tight already. You have to be able to produce lumber in the most efficient manner possible. And that's kind of what we're here for. You have to have cutting edge technology. And that's what we're investing in. And the strategic investment program, literally in the name, is to invest in our operations. And that's what we're continuing to do. So if you take the next slide, Jason. Our current site here, it's been a sawmilling facility since the 1950s. We, as Jason mentioned, acquired the property in 2021, 150 acres there. We have 3 sawmill lines, and on the next slide you'll see an overlay. But those 3 sawmill lines, a Hughes saw line, a stud mill line, and a dimension mill line, all 3 separate buildings grown over time, and they're older. You know, we're at the stage where a lot of the sawmilling equipment we have, there's 30 plus years. I think the average age in the mill is probably in the mid-20s, and things have changed. Things get more automated, things get more scanning technology, all those types of things cost a lot of money. So what we're doing is putting all of this under one roof and able to gain efficiencies that way and get more efficient. We also have a 19 megawatt renewable cogeneration facility on site there. That allows us to convert biomass, the sawmill byproduct, into steam, dries our lumber, and also enough steam to turn a turbine and create energy, and more energy than the sawmill's needs, which we're able to sell to the grid. Jason also mentioned the $8 million investment we made in the fab shop and truck shop that are on site, and that's added approximately 40 people so far to the facility. And the fabrication shop is engineers, fabricators, millwrights, controls types, good jobs, high-tech types of jobs, and these people we use to build and maintain our equipment, and a lot of this is going to be folks that are going to be building part of this project. So that's been a really good addition. I'll turn it back over to Bernier.
Yeah, so on the regulatory partners on that last slide, something I'll flag because it'll come up in this next piece. So we do call the regulatory partners and agencies our partners. They know the nuances, ins and outs of the rules beneath those permits better than we do, and so we spend a lot of time engaging, making sure that we're understanding process and we're tackling it in the most effective way. As it relates to the current sawmills and the current cogeneration facility, we are permitted under the Cleaner Air Oregon program. For us, there's an interesting component that relates to the timing of this project and those permits. I don't know that I would say chicken and egg, but there was some elements of, is this project feasible? First, we must know if we can permit under the Cleaner Air Oregon program. And so it took a substantial amount of capital investment and almost design of the project to even pursue determining whether it could be permitted under Cleaner Air Oregon, which was required before we could then permit to determine if it could be permitted under some of the land use. So it's an element that created a lot of lead time, and we all kind of understood, but it hadn't actually had the question asked before under these new programs, which is, can a substantial site modification, an existing site modification, how does that work under land use permitting and cleaner air? So it's complex, and we've navigated that, and so it is, the new sawmill is now permitted under Cleaner Air Oregon. As we've refined the project a bit, and we continue to, because we're still in some of the concept phases, we'll have to go back and modify those permits as well. So on this next slide, this takes the image that you saw in Jason's slides and adds another layer, which just provides some line drawings of some of the changes that will occur on the site. And so Gary mentioned that we have 3 separate sawmill lines on the site. They are in 3 separate buildings at this time. Under this new project, the goal is to bring them all the plan is to bring them all under one roof. And that allows us to be more efficient and effective with movement of material and also the design of those systems. And then we will be repurposing most of the remaining buildings to fulfill other portions. We just have to kind of reorient that site to serve now those lines being more efficient and modern under one facility. And as part of our permits, the locations of all of these buildings and then all of the equipment within the buildings become very important because we're doing analysis about impacts of the site. I think we'll kind of leave it at that point, mainly to prioritize time for discussion or questions. And I know public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Grisel and Mr. Young. The matter is now back to the board to open public comment before we take questions, feedback from the board.
Great, thank you very much. We'll now open public comment for the opportunity for public testimony. Thank you, Devin. For the record, today is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, and it's 11:28 a.m., and I have 4 people signed up for public testimony. When I call your name, please come to this podium right here and state your name and address before providing your comment, and your comment will be limited to 3 minutes. We're going to have a clock on that screen up there, so be mindful of that clock and try to end your comments on time so we can proceed with the next person. So the first person I'd like to call forward is Tiffany Edwards, followed by John Brown, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Edwards. I'm at 3839 Sterling Woods Drive in Eugene, but I serve as the Vice President of Policy and Community Development at the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today to express our strong support for Sierra Pacific Industries' request to enter into a strategic investment program agreement with Lane County. Sierra Pacific is one of the largest wood products employers in our region, providing over 450 jobs and more than $36 million in annual wages, much of that in family wage positions well above the Lane County average. These jobs are foundational to household stability, homeownership, and economic mobility, particularly important in a time of housing insecurity and rising costs. This $250 million reinvestment project represents one of the largest private industrial investments in recent Lane County history. It will modernize and strengthen SPI's Eugene operations within their existing industrial footprint and help retain 347 jobs in the process. During construction, it will also create opportunities for dozens of local contractors and support firms, businesses like Wildish, ONS, EPS, and others that keep our regional economy moving. Sierra Pacific isn't just an employer, they are a deeply engaged community partner. They fund rural patrol deputies, invest in AED equipment for law enforcement, support education foundations and libraries, and work closely with Lane Community College and our K-12 schools to develop the next generation of workforce talent. This strategic investment program was designed precisely for companies like this, businesses making large-scale, long-term commitments to Oregon communities. Under the terms of this proposed agreement, SPI will still pay over $46 million in taxes and fees during the SIP term, including full taxes on the first $100 million invested and additional payments to support rural public safety. This agreement isn't a loss of revenue, it's a retention strategy, a growth strategy, and a commitment to Lane County's future. Approving this agreement tells capital-intensive employers that Lane County is a good place to invest, grow, and stay. Rejecting it risks sending the opposite message. On behalf of the Eugene Chamber and our 1,400 members, I urge you to approve this SIP agreement. Let's work together and keep Lane County competitive, working, and thriving. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Edwards. John Brown, followed by Steve Wildish.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Brown, 101 East Broadway, Eugene 97401. For the record, my comments today are my personal comments and not those of any position I hold on any board or commission. I've lived in this community for over 74 years, and I've seen firsthand from my involvement in commercial and industrial real estate for over 40 years the value of making investments like is proposed today to help our local economy. I'm here today to express support for Sierra Pacific Industries' significant investment and the use of the SIP program. As someone who has worked here and seen substantial investment on our limited commercial industrial sites, I can tell you that tools like the SIP are critical as they help Lane County retain competitive with other regions. A $250 million capital investment is not just significant, it's generational, especially when it's tied to a site that's already zoned, already operating, and deeply rooted in our local economy. This is a vertically integrated, sustainable advanced manufacturing campus tied to sustainably managed timberlands. They run a biomass cogen facility that produces renewable power using wood byproducts. I've seen firsthand this facility. I was involved years ago about making a decision involving what was then Seneca, and there was community concern about whether or not they were good environmental stewards and whether or not they did the job right. So I got out into the woods. I went out and I toured every aspect of their operation, and without exception, I can tell you they are one of the most sustainable, environmentally responsible companies I've ever seen, and I've been here a long time. They know how to do it. You go from one of their roads that's got turnouts and salmon-friendly culverts and things like that, go onto the Forest Service, BLM, four-wheel drive time, and salmon get there themselves. It's absolutely night and day how good they operate. I just want to say that as a community, we should be encouraging long-term private taxable employers to stay and modernize in Lane County, especially those who align with our community values of stewardship, sustainability, and stability. This SIP isn't a handout. It's a smart policy tool that ensures our major investment in Lane County and sends a message that this is a place where advanced manufacturing, good jobs, and responsible land use still have a future. I strongly encourage you to support this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Steve Wildish, followed by Vonnie Mickelson.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Steve Wildish. I reside at 2021 Morningview Drive, Eugene. I'm part of the Wildish Companies, also a fourth-generation family-owned business based here in Lane County. For nearly a century, Wildish has worked to grow family wage jobs, build critical infrastructure, and contribute to the long-term vitality of this region. That's why I'm here today to express our strong support for Sierra Pacific Industries' mill project and their strategic investment program application. When SPI acquired their Oregon operations, they didn't waste time. They immediately began investing in their facilities, their employees, and our local economy. Wildish has been proud to serve as a contractor on several of their recent projects, including the development of their fabrication and trucking facilities and internal circulation and site improvements at their Highway 99 site. Throughout, SPI has shown a genuine interest in partnering with local contractors, suppliers, community leaders, building strong relationships, and keeping work and opportunity in Lane County. This new project is a continuation of that commitment. It means work for companies like ours, high-quality jobs for local workers, and long-term stability for the families and businesses that rely on a healthy manufacturing economy. Wildish strongly urges your support for this agreement, project, and company, not just for SPI, but for their employees' entire regional economy that benefits when meaningful long-term investment like this are supported, celebrated, and incented to move forward. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wildish. Now, Vonnie Mickelson.
Thank you, Commissioners. Vonnie Mickelson, Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce, 101 South A Street in Springfield. And I have to be honest, I am so excited about this, I can hardly contain myself. I sure hope you are as well and understand what a great deal this is for our community. I'm here to provide the community's perspective from the Springfield Chamber. I do urge your support for this proposed capital reinvestment project. The $253 million at the Eugene Sawmill site represents one of the largest private industrial investments in Lane County history, and it's a clear signal of that long-term commitment of one of our anchor and legacy companies to stable family wage jobs, modern sustainable manufacturing, and our regional economy. So when public institutions support investments of this magnitude, the benefits do extend far beyond any single employer. It builds confidence in Lane County as a place where private sector investment is met with collaborative government partners. That confidence is so critical, especially right now in our state, but certainly in Lane County. Today's highly competitive environment, employers like SPI who maintain operations across Pacific Northwest, as you saw, have multiple options when deciding where to allocate their capital. Their decision to invest in Lane County is one to be celebrated. Your support helps ensure that companies like SPI continue to choose Lane County for future investment and growth. There are several concrete reasons to support this project beyond those already explained. SPI is one of the largest manufacturing employers, as you saw, with a significant presence also in Springfield. 20 to 25% of their employees do live and in Springfield. So of course, we support the payroll and the benefits and the individual families living in Springfield that is a direct economic impact on home ownership, but also on that discretionary income that supports our small businesses. A significant portion of this investment will modernize equipment and facilities. I would stress that that improves not only efficiency, but also enhances worker health and safety. And at a time of structural deficits like we're seeing across Oregon, also in local taxing districts, this reinvestment will contribute to that much needed growth in Lane County's long-term tax base, funding critical public services and infrastructure. So SPI is not only a key employer, but also a valued community partner, as you saw, investing in local workforce development, nonprofits, public safety initiatives, and their civic leadership only amplifies the impact of their economic role. This project's an opportunity to reinforce Lane County's reputation as a region that values quality jobs, responsible investment, and long-term economic health. And for those regions, I urge your support. May I also congratulate staff for a great negotiated package, and also SPI for their generosity. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone, for your public comments. Does staff have anything to add to the comments or any clarifying comments?
No, Chair, Commissioners, no additional comments from public comment, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And now to the board. Who wants to comment or speak first? Don't all rush to the front of the line, everyone. Yes, Vice Chair.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Great public comment. I took a couple of notes down as the presentation was going on. Something that has been brought up and is kind of a concern, and this might be for you, Mr. Good, or you, Ms. Griesel. This kind of investment, this isn't something that's easily moved once it's put in place, or is this something that could be packed up and shipped down the road to, say, Northern California at one of your other plants? What is this? I mean, I don't want to get into what the investment is. You are the experts, but I mean, like, what is the likelihood of something like that taking place?
Absolutely none. I mean, you'd piece it out, scrap. I mean, it would almost impossible to move any of this stuff in some sort of other application. I mean, I don't know, Courtney, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too, the product is different. So the product and the fiber is different. So we're a Douglas fir primary landscape here, and we're going to be processing some different materials, so we'll process it different. So even if you could do that, it wouldn't make sense, but I think it is a zero.
I mean, so it sounds like it's being built in place.
Yeah, and it's super site-specific. That's part of the benefit of having a fabrication division is, and we say this a lot when the community comes through, you've seen one sawmill, because they are so geographically and site-specific.
Yeah, I mean, we overlaid there. It's designed specifically to lay within the operating footprint we're already working with. So, I mean, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind spot effectively as well.
That 115 acres. And so that $8 million investment that you already put into your fabrication shop is going to help build this future site.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that shop does a couple things. It sort of follows the principles that Sierra Pacific embraces. So we keep a fabrication division in each of our regions. Oregon didn't have one when we entered this region, so that was an early investment. Important to this project, but also important to all our Oregon projects.
All right. Okay, that's it for now, but I've got.
Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Yeah, Commissioner Farr, go ahead, please.
You know what, I read our local newspaper this morning, Register-Guard, and I was really alarmed to find out that in 2024, Oregon was the 31st best state to live in. 31st best out of 50. That leaves us not too far from the bottom. But worse news was that in 2025, we're the 35th best state to live in no small part because we are 37th, lower than our overall ranking in economy. This is by U.S. News and World Report. This report is from U.S. News and World Report, who I trust. You know, I've not researched all of the things that they state, but I do trust that. And one thing that you stated, Ms. Griesel, is that we are building Oregon homes, but also building homes outside of the state. So we know here that we have a need for homes. We need to bring the price of homes down however we can. And that's not exactly what we're here talking about today. However, I think you make studs at that mill, right? You make lots of them. Studs it used to be 2x4, 8 foot. I think it's probably something a little bit different now, but you build houses. That's what this is all about. I'm highly attuned to that. I've sold your studs for a lot of years. and Seneca Sawmill, the stamp on the end was always, people would always pick that unit over the other units because of the quality. And I think it's because you stacked them straight, probably. Maybe that was all it was. But that being said, not only are we building Oregon homes, but we're exporting the product all over the United States. Northwest grown Oregon Douglas fir lumber, the best product to build houses out of in the entire nation, in the entire world, I do believe. So I think one thing that Ms. Mickelson said is that this is one of the largest investments in Lane County history, and it's huge, you know. And I'm looking at the slides where you provided the amount of taxes on the new investment with the SIP investment over the course of the next 15 years is $19.9 million. That's the investment. That's with the SIP. And in addition to that, you're providing a pretty significant amount of community benefit. You know, I'm just in favor of the project for all of the reasons stated by the people who testified today. And I think that One last little quick story. I grew up in Tillamook County. Tillamook's not a cheese county. Tillamook's a lumber county. They also make cheese there. When I worked in Tillamook, I worked for my dad at Tillamook Farmers Co-op. He was the general manager of Tillamook Farmers Co-op. But I wanted to get a job at the mill because it paid so much more than the Farmers Co-op. Couldn't get a job at the mill because I was a bit young and I left town before I was really eligible. But the fact is, you have high-paying jobs, not just your millwrights, not just your engineers, but the people who are, I don't know if people pull on the green chain anymore, which is what I wanted to do. But it's everybody working there has good wages. Some of them some of the wages they take to Springfield, some of them they take home, and some of them back to Notai. And we love our Notai side as well. Although we'll be talking predominantly about Eugene today, is what you said. So I just love the presentation. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you've stated this is not equipment that we put on the back of a truck or on a train and take south. It stays here. It will be here through the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll weigh in here. Mr. Brown, you said something that I thought was really great. You said this is not significant, it's generational. This isn't a handout, but a smart policy tool, and I couldn't agree with you more. And Bonnie, you asked us if you're as excited as I am of this opportunity, and my answer is yeah, I really am. I am in full support of this. I want to also say this to the public. I said, if you're just looking at this, there's a lot of numbers we've been throwing around, but of $253 million invested, and we're looking at about a $6 million savings over the course of 15 years, that's only 2.3% that they're going to save in taxes. So back to what Mr. Brown said, this isn't a handout, but a smart policy tool. He's absolutely correct. The amount of money that we are unquote, missing in this is barely the cost of what the average CPI index is over a given year. And you're going to retain nearly 500 employees between two mill sites, and you've invested in the community for over 75 years. In fact, I can't remember the time I went to a Little League baseball field where I haven't seen the presence of Sierra Pacific's banners in the last couple of years since you guys have taken over. So I really appreciate the fact that you're supporting youth sports and you're really plugging in aggressively to the community. And then I also, Courtney, you had a slide up there that you didn't brag about, but I did catch the verbiage. You've given back to Oregon in philanthropic endeavors more than you're going to save in this tax program, this strategic investment program. So I wanted the public to know that you're giving back more than we're giving you. And so I wanted to make sure of that. And then lastly, I wanted to read this from written comments that we got, and it was from the Springfield Chamber of Commerce president when she said, when public institutions support investments of this scale, the benefits extend far beyond a single employer. It builds confidence in Lane County as a place where private sector investment is met with collaborative government response, and that confidence is critical. And I couldn't agree more. As an investor in my community, I find the benefit when someone sticks out and takes a risk and invests largely in the community. Those people who were tepid and fearful will follow, and that momentum creates great change for the future of our community. So I want to commend you for doing this, and I'm in full support of this. Any final comments from the board?
One more.
Yeah, Vice Chair, go ahead.
Well, on that note, something that I believe Ms. Edwards says is this is not a possible loss of funding. This is a growth opportunity. That's huge when you're looking at our current community. I was in a meeting in Mapleton just 2 weeks ago, and there was excitement about a possible investment going on in a mill, and a couple of the people actually make that trek because those are what our jobs look like currently. And that excitement was energizing because it started talking about Swiss Home and the opportunities. And, at times like these, this kind of investment is what we need to be really leaning into to show businesses that Lane County can be a home. I don't expect you to know this, but I heard once, and this is, telling of the kind of advancements we've seen, but your cogen plant can turn a tree into energy with less emissions than it would sit on the forest floor if in compost. And that cogen was put in years ago. So these are the kind of technologically advanced investments that originally Seneca, and now it's great to see Sierra Pacific willing to put forward. So thank you, Chair.
Good point. Thanks for mentioning that. Any last comments from staff before we wrap up this public hearing?
Chair, Commissioners, no. This concludes the collective input.
Okay, great. I'm now closing the public hearing on this matter, and for head nods, as far as I've heard, we can prepare to have staff direct its next steps in this process and hopefully bring back to us a directive in the coming weeks. Good?
Sure.
All right, well, thank you for coming. Appreciate all you do. Appreciate it very much. Mr. Mokryski, it looks like you're next up on the docket is the announcements for an election update and some possible sheriff process updates. Would you like to proceed, sir?
Happy to do that, and I'll invite Alana Holmes, our Human Resource Director, up, and Ryan McBride to just tee up the slide we're going to share with you on the sheriff's recruitment. First, I'll do the elections update. The election today is Election Day. If you didn't know, the election live stream is now live and viewable at lanecounty.org/elections. Our ballot collection teams are running regular pickup routes to all 21 drop-box sites in Lane County. Voters who are registered by the April 29th deadline can receive a replacement ballot for a lost or damaged ballot, or update their registration if necessary to be reissued a ballot until 8 p.m. on Election Day. So you still have that opportunity today if that's a need you have. The elections office is open today from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. with no closure for lunch. Our return dashboards are live as of May 9th. We expect the update from Election Day from today. The returns will be updated tomorrow, Wednesday, May 21st. As of Monday, yesterday, Monday, May 19th, Lane County Elections has received 38,586 ballots, for a total of just under 14% participation so far. In 2023, the turnout as of the Monday before Election Day for the May election was just over 20%. So we're seeing lower voter turnout in this election compared to the 2023 election. The first day of ballot deconstruction was May 16th last week, with 22,343 ballots deconstructed by 10 bipartisan teams that do that work. And then the first results of the election will be posted on the elections website at 8 p.m. tonight, and then further results again at 11 p.m. That's your elections update. And then we have in front of you, we have two slides here. I'm going to ask Alana Holmes, our Human Resource Director, to walk through just the process, the proposed process that we have with updated dates for this sheriff cycle, and it reflects the last time that we did this in 2000. Do we have the data? 2019, just 6 years ago. So, Alana, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, almost afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. I think part of what we wanted to do today is also for the public to understand the process and based on some of the feedback that I've heard. So there are a lot of requirements that are wrapped into the kind of process we're doing here, not just for an elected official, but also in the world of law enforcement. There are specific, what we call minimum qualifications pursuant, I think, to our charter, our lane manual, and our the Oregon revised statutes, and those are in the posting. Based on prior discussion with you, I think over a week ago, we posted the position for the sheriff on May 16th. That's a Friday. That posting remains open until May 27th, the day after Memorial Day. So it will remain open until 11:59 p.m. And anyone who is interested and meets the criteria that were on the first slide and that's very specifically outlined in the process is welcome to apply. After we receive those applications, we will have screened them for minimum qualifications in human resources by May 29th. And so we will look to ensure that all the criteria that were on the posting are met for whoever has applied. And some might ask, well, why are we turning around a recruitment like this instead of keeping it open for a much longer period of time? And I would just want to share that because of the criteria, it's a very narrow focus of people that will be able to apply for this role. So, and it is consistent with how we have done the process in the past when we went through this in 2019. So then I think we're interested in hearing from you on June 11th is when we would look at having a work session with you. And that would be to interview any of the applicants determined to be qualified for this position. Then we would follow that with an executive session which would allow you all to debrief those interviews and answer any questions that you might have of us. And then you would come out into public session to be able to vote on a selection. And if there is such a vote, to be able to appoint someone to fill that slot. We will have a board order that will be ready to fill in the blank with the name of a candidate if one is selected at that time for you to be able to implement that order immediately. And then right after that, we would have the sheriff sworn in. So that's a high-level view of the process. One thing that's not in there, but that I would be soliciting from all of you, is we will send you the previous list of interview questions that was used last go-around, and then I will look to each of you to give Ryan and I feedback as to these look great, or I'm interested in some, adding another question or whatever. We will take that feedback and then, prepare interview questions for your process. So I guess what we're looking for at this point is any questions, any feedback on the timeline, or any part of the process as I've just described it to you.
To the board. Yes, Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that this is pretty much a reflection of the request that was made at the last board meeting, and it, almost verbatim, so thank you.
Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for the work. I just have your comment about question development was one of my questions, so thank you for anticipating that. I have two other questions. One is the resetting of the election cycle. The sheriff has historically been on the presidential year elections. Is that a matter of ORS? Typically, when in other elected office, when there's a vacancy, the newly appointed and then elected person still has to run when that seat would have been up anyway. So I'm just curious about where that comes from, that it resets the cycle.
Commissioner Trieger, thank you for that question. And Ryan has that ready to respond.
I don't have that at specific ORS, Commissioner, but yes, it was in one of the ORS.
But it's an ORS. Okay, great. I figured, but just wanted to confirm that. And then the only other question I have, which may become moot if there's only one applicant, this next question is potentially moot, but if there is not, having the interviews, deliberation, and swearing in all on the same day, how would applicants know whether to be here or not? Is there an opportunity to shift everything but the appointment to Tuesday the 10th, and then the 11th is the swearing in, so if family members want to be, just anything about your thinking about that piece of the timing?
That's a really, really good comment. And I think how would they know to be here is if, these interviews in the past have been live, so they're in person in the BCC with all of you. And when you come out of executive session, we have stayed in that room and they've been available to hear what the decision is at that point. As to if you would want to move that to the next, if we want to shift things so that we can do that on a separate day,
Yeah, Commissioner, I would add, I believe that this, again, really mirrors the process we did the last time, and I think part of the reason the swearing in followed immediately is because we were at the time trying to complete the process before the former sheriff left office. And so I think that was kind of the reason that process was hastened. I think I wouldn't see any issue in, setting a separate day out for swearing in or.
I guess maybe all I would offer, if there's consensus, is wait and see when the position closes. If there's more than one applicant, maybe a consideration of making an adjustment in that regard, just in the name of making it clear that we are authentically deliberating and will arrive or not at some kind of decision, and allowing for a little space for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. Can you pop back to the requirements screen again? So the resident of Lane County for at least 2 years immediately preceding. So people aren't coming from Washington State for this. I mean, the furthest they're coming from is the top of the Three Sisters or Hasita Head Lighthouse.
Commissioner Farr, that is correct, which is why I said earlier, it literally is a very narrow scope of population of people with this experience that reside in Lane County, not only currently, but over the last 2 years.
And immediately preceding.
Yes.
And, you know, that being said, people don't have to book hotel rooms, they don't have to book flights. If they can't be here, there's no real impedance to that, because they live, once again, someplace between Hasita Head Lighthouse and the top of the Three Sisters. They might live at Waldo Lake, I don't know, but, okay, I understand. I like the schedule, the way you have it lined out, thank you.
All right. Proceed on with the schedule, looks like. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Mr. Milkowski, anything else to add, sir?
That's it. Look forward to budget approval tonight.
Yes, we do. Thank you for announcing that. I was going to do that later. Look, we are a little short on time, but I'd like to do this with our commissioners' business, our announcements, comments, and committee reports. Let's just lump that all into one. And who wants to go first on reporting about comments, announcements, or any committee business? Yes, Commissioner Farr.
I'll kick off. You know, Ms. Mokrajewski, last week at the Budget Committee meeting, I was very complimentary toward Michael Finch and Jill Allen, particularly regarding the customer service desk and the efficiencies that have been achieved in the customer service desk. And I once again, I complimented them personally, but Jill Allen took umbrage. And she sent me a letter. She said, thank you, your kind words mean a great deal, et cetera, but I'd like to recognize the leadership of Marina Sosa, the customer service support supervisor. And I wanted to mention Marina Sosa's name, because if you've called the customer service desk, and it is exactly that, it's customer service, which is what we all do. We're all customer service. Some of us may not recognize that, but we are all in customer service. They are really good at it, and I want to compliment, through Jill Allen's inducement, to compliment Marina Sosa and the work that that entire customer service desk does. Fantastic. I'd love to say more, but we don't have time. The other thing I'll mention is that we did, while I was in my absence this morning, extended the lease for the Lane County Historical Museum at the fairgrounds. I love that place, except for one thing. I hate that place. It's jammed in, it's smelly, it leaks. The place where they store their product, their non-displayed collection is subject to molding. We need someplace different. Bob Hart and I started touring about 8 years ago, looking at places like Philomath, which has a great storage facility for the Benton County Museum. And really, to keep all of the history of Lane County intact at some point, we really do need to find a different facility, one that really lends dignity to the true dignity which surrounds the history of Lane County that goes back hundreds of years before the first sheriff of Lane County was sworn in.
Thank you. Anyone else? Vice Chair.
Yeah, so two things. We had our Lane Act meeting last week, and with Oregon's budget coming out, it was yet another rough budget meeting. We went through some of the projects. We are going to pave some roads this year, but a lot of things have been put on hold. The capital improvement plan is going to get completely revamped, it looks like, and we're going to go back over and do a 3 and a 5 year plan. So just be ready for that. Anything that you thought was getting paved or fixed might not be getting paved or fixed. So more to come. Then, Mr. Mokrajewski, I spoke with you earlier today about possibly doing a work session about the navigation center on River Road. I don't know. I didn't know that that we were up for renewal with them in June of this year. Did we find out if that was true or not? I've heard in some emails. Okay.
Sir, I haven't verified that yet.
Okay. But if I could, I speak with James Ewell quite a bit about what's going on out there, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind doing a work session if everybody would be in support of that. See how the navigation center and River Road's working.
Question, Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you. Would that be a focus on the Navigation Center at the next Housing Division of the Human Services Division's update, or its own standalone item is part A of my question?
Well, I don't know what the timeline is on that. Do you?
I don't, off the top of my head, know when the next one is, but we do have those routinely. Kate Budd comes before us, and she often brings James Ewell with her, so that's what I'm asking if.
No, I would like to just talk about the Navigation Center at this point.
And then my question about the renewal, that would be a renewal with the service provider, Equitable Solutions. We own the property, and the state provides funding, so there's no renewal of the property, it's a renewal of the service provider. Thank you.
And I did verify, or I checked with our HHS director, and it sounds, we're checking, but believe that it's currently out for requests for proposals right now. Which would track with the June timeline. So again, we'll get that information.
Thank you.
As the service provider, Lane County owns the facility and we contract out the operations.
If I may respond, you know, when we first converted that facility from it was an old veterans clinic years and years ago, well, before it was during COVID, Ms. Mulchrist. Remember that? We're all out there and we all had to stand 6 feet apart. So they had to use a super wide angle to get the ribbon cutting ceremony. That was, it really, you know, we vetted a lot of the issues with the neighborhood at that point in time. And I think one thing that we need to do is make certain that we're upholding our promises that we made to the neighborhood at that point in time. I'd love to see us verify that.
Okay. Anybody else? Review, Mr. Mokrowski, please.
I just have that assignment to schedule a work session on the Navigation Center, and we'll work on doing that hopefully, this summer, as soon as we can get that going.
Okay, any other business for the good of the order this morning? Or this afternoon, rather, now we're in this afternoon. All right, just a reminder, our public budget meetings tonight at 5:30 in Harris Hall. And our next meeting of the Board of County Commissioners is Tuesday, June 10th. We are off next week, and this meeting is adjourned.